I'm a bad motherfucker.
Okay, so we have a lot of good segments today. This is one of the marquee segments of the day. So Cenk Uygur wrestled, not with his conscience, but with Cenk Uygur, over, of all things, RFK Jr.'s suitability for the presidency. So RFK got a lot of press suggesting that Biden might be more dangerous than Donald Trump. So let's see what he had to say.
Listen,
Oh, you know what? Let me just start again. I'm Russell Dobular, filling in for Jimmy Dore while he's away on vacation. Keaton, that was your job. You're supposed to remind me.
Oh, that's right. That's right. No, I forgot. I concede. I forgot about that this evening.
Okay,
yeah.
So
you can
there we go. There we go. All right, so we're back.
Okay, good. We're back.
All right. So yes, this is Cenk Uygur versus Cenk Uygur wrestling, not with his conscience, but with himself, over RFK's statement that Biden might be more dangerous than Donald Trump. So let's see.
Listen, I can make the argument that President Biden is a much worse threat to democracy. And the reason for that is President Biden is the first candidate in history, the first president in history that has used the federal agencies to censor political speech, so to censor his opponent. I can say that because I just won a case in the Federal Court of Appeals and now before the Supreme Court. It shows that he started censoring not just me. 37 hours after he took the oath of office, he was censoring me. No president in the country has ever done that. The greatest threat to democracy is not somebody who questions election returns, but a president of the United States who used the power of his office to force the social media companies, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to open a portal and give access to that portal to the FBI, to the CIA, to the IRS, to CISA, to NIH, to censor his political critics. President Biden, for the first president in history, to use his power over the Secret Service to deny Secret Service protection to one of his political opponents for political reasons. He's weaponizing the federal agencies. Those are really critical threats to democracy.
Donald Trump, of course, tried to overturn a free and fair election. He tried to overturn one, right? He's still fighting in court.
Yes.
How is that not a threat to democracy?
Well, I think that is a threat to democracy. If him trying to overthrow the election clearly is a threat to democracy. But the question was, who is a worse threat to democracy? And what I would say is, I'm not going to answer that question, but I can argue that President Biden is, because the First Amendment, Aaron, is the most important. Adams and Hamilton and Madison said, we put the guarantee of freedom of expression in the First Amendment because all of our other constitutional rights depend on it. If you have a government that can silence its opponent, it has license for any atrocity.
So just to be clear, you're saying you could make an argument that President Biden is a worse threat to democracy than Donald
absolutely.
Trump. That's what you just said.
But who else is?
Okay. Those are all fair points. In my
just
opinion.
a note on that, it is funny. He got in trouble for this, or not got in trouble. He got some pushback.
Yeah, the usual.
And he tried to walk it back. He tried to say, because Aaron Burnett says, you're saying you could make an argument that Biden is a bigger threat. And he said, absolutely. So then when he got called out by some liberals for saying, you said Biden's a bigger threat, he said, no, I didn't say that. I said the argument could be made he's a bigger threat. So he tried to waffle it a little bit there, which is interesting, because I think the point as itself, as its own point, I think it is valid. He probably just should have stuck to that.
Yeah, well, Cenk actually backed him up on that, on having been misinterpreted. But we know, this is what we called out with RFK very early on. He's another one. He's a lawyer. Well,
he's that's a lawyer
very
thing.
Slippery.
I didn't say that. I said you could make the argument.
Right.
I said you could say that. I didn't say it. I said one could say it. Right.
He always leaves himself wiggle room. He always leaves himself some kind of plausible deniability. which is one of the reasons from very early on, and we caught a lot of shit for it. We were not RFK stands. Okay, so Cenk decided to weigh in on this, and it goes in some surprising directions, particularly in relation to an interview he gave to Brianna and Robbie on the Hill, which seems to contradict a lot of what he says here. So let's see what he had to say.
I'm going to say a couple surprising things here. First, I'm going to agree with Kennedy on 4 things. Then I'm going to tell you why what he's saying is partly a trick. And so, be careful, about his tactic here. But then I have something even more surprising to say. All right, so first, let me tell you the things I agree with. The headlines are wrong. He didn't say that Biden is definitely a bigger threat. He said he could make an argument for that. And you've got to be careful with that. And you know what the mainstream media loves to do. They love to smear anyone who's an outsider. So boom, they took that as an opportunity to do that. So he's right about that. Number 2, he's right to be concerned about Biden being a threat to democracy himself. Maybe not for the reasons that he's stating, but Biden did, support anti-democratic movements within the primary. The Democratic Party canceled the election in Florida. They try to keep out every candidate in North Carolina, Tennessee, etc. So they love to rig elections. Yes, I use the word rigged, okay? So you can go cry about it if you're mainstream media. How about you do your job and talk about how they canceled the election in Florida in the primary and just declared Biden the winner? So if you're gonna make the argument that you're a champion of democracy, you should probably try it in your own primaries.
Okay, all right, very strong words from Cenk. According to Cenk Uygur, the Democratic primaries are rigged. Let's go back in time.
Back in time, I would assume before he tried to run in the Democratic primary.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this was before he announced. This is when he thought he could sell his book without a half-assed presidential campaign.
Right. Yeah. He was going to see how the book sales
He was
went,
just doing the rounds on the book, and then all of a sudden he got the bright idea when he saw his book ranked 87,000 on the Amazon list for political books, as we covered on our own show. He decided to run for president. That's my theory.
In the primaries, Marianne is at this point clearly the best candidate. It's not even close, okay? But as you see there's one thing I wanted to quickly correct, because in my opinion, I don't think the Democratic Party has much power at all. So they set the debates, they set this, they set that. I understand that, but they don't rig votes.
Oh, so it's not rigged then. It's not rigged, or it is rigged. Which is it, Cenk?
You just set all the context. And I hate the rules that they set, and I think they're deeply corrupt. But that's not the number 1 problem. The number 1 problem is media. If Marianne Williamson got the same amount of respect and coverage in the media